A lot of people think hifdh is very simple. If the lines don't come to me, I just repeat again and again and again until it gets into my head. And of course, repetition is important and it does matter. But over many years of teaching hifdh, I realized something very important. And most people forget this. Your brain is different from everyone else's. More repetition does not mean that you'll automatically memorize more. In fact, sometimes it's the opposite. I've seen it myself. I've actually had students where I've asked them to repeat 50, 60, 100 times and it still does not get into their head. In this video, I want to explain what actually strengthens a person's hifdh and how understanding how your brain recalls information changes everything in your hifdh journey. This is based on real teaching experience with a little bit of theory. Now, let's go back to that case that I mentioned where a brother that I was teaching was repeating 60, 70, 100 times one line. It wasn't that he was repeating a page, he was repeating one line 60, 70, 100 times. And yet, even though I was standing right next to him, listening to him repeat it, after all of that repetition, it still wasn't easy for him to recite it. He was still making the same mistakes. Of course, now you can't say to him that you need to repeat 1,000 times. You need to repeat, 1,000,000 times. It's not going into his head after 50 times. Whereas the average person that I've seen can usually get an ayah into their head after 10, 20 times. So instead of forcing more repetition, we experimented. And this is a big principle that I want everyone to take away. When it comes to memorization, there are many different types of memorization, or you could say 3 main types of memorization. Every type of memorization usually falls under these 3 categories. You either look at the mushaf, meaning reading visually, or you listen to a qari reciting it, or you write the letters that you're memorizing. Every single memorization tip or technique, they fall under these 3 major umbrellas or categories of memorization. When I experimented with this specific brother with these 3 types of memorization techniques and tips, it turns out that he wasn't very good at visually reading and getting it into his head. He memorized far better by listening to sounds. Whereas before I had told him to look at the page and read 10 times with looking 20 times, 50 times, it wasn't getting into his head. But after 10 times of listening to the ayah without looking, closing his eyes, I literally told him, close your eyes and listen to the ayat being recited and focus on the sounds the qari is reciting. When he did that, it was far more stickier. It was easier for him to recite the ayat that he just memorized. For this specific brother, repeating was not going to do anything. It was just blurring and hiding the real issue here. The way he was memorizing was incorrect. And there are so many other ways of memorizing that people need to experiment with. A big thing that everyone needs to realize is that memory is personal. I've mentioned this in many other videos before, but memory is something that only one specific, unique person can have. No other person can have the same memories that I have. No other person can have the same memories that you have. Of all of Bani Adam, of all humankind, there is no one with the same memories that I have. So now, as a person who is memorizing, why am I trying to copy and paste and cut and click into someone else's memory, trying to copy what works for other people? Repetition is necessary, it's needed, but in specific ways that are tailored for your memorization. And always remember that repetition only benefits when it's done actively, and meaning actively recalled, not something that you are constantly looking or listening or i.e. cheating, basically. If you were to go to an exam and looked at the answers and written every single answer from the answer sheet, you would have been a cheater, basically. And yet a lot of people do the same thing when it comes to memorizing the Qur'an. You see, even after I told that brother to repeat in a way that suited his memorization style, it wasn't enough for him to be able to keep it in his head. What was important is that he comes back again and again and again without looking, without listening, without cheating, which is important, and reciting it from the top of his head. Only then did the ayat stay in his head for long enough for him to be able to actually recite it, easily. Often people will see that when they memorize something in the morning time or, in a certain period of time, they memorize it and then within a few hours, it's gone. It's no longer in the back of their head. The brain is very good at picking up memorizing things. It's part of your biology to be able to memorize. You are very capable of knowing your way back home. You are very capable of, walking certain streets from memory. Often you'll see people who are blind, after being able to see, they still remember a lot of the things that they used to do, meaning they don't feel as impeded by their disability. Repetition is good for short term. It brings it into your head only for a short amount of time. What brings it into your long term memory such that it becomes easy for you to, recite it, such as Surah Fatiha. It's constant looking away, not, allowing yourself to see the ayat and reading it without looking. So in that sense, repetition is good, but only if you're repeating without looking. What does this mean practically for students and teachers? Teachers need to recognize that not every single student is the same. Students have different capabilities, different memorization styles. They need to be catered for and tailored, appropriately. Remembering the 3 different types of memorization styles and techniques is important in this specific moment, because I've seen often, sometimes someone may look at something for ages, for hours, and it still doesn't get into their head. But within seconds, if they write something or listen to something, it gets into their head far quicker. And this is often why you'll see that hufaz, they often accelerate in their last few ajza. Why? Because they finally understood their brain. They've gotten to grips of what their body is capable of, especially when you're younger. And meaning it doesn't always have to be younger in age. It can be younger in terms of your Qur'an age as well, meaning your experience with reciting and memorizing the Qur'an. And no matter what, whenever you are memorizing, don't forget that repetition is only good if you are making sure that you're not cheating. You see, repetition has its place in the memorization system or cycle. It's the most important thing in the beginning. You need to get it into your short-term memory, but to really get it to flourish, or to make sure that it stays in your head for a long time, it needs to be actively recorded, the portions that you're memorizing.